In Huston, Texas, on September the 12th, 1962, President John F. Kennedy addressed a huge crowd gathered in the stadium of Rice University. On that day, President Kennedy set out a whole bold plan. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and to do other things, not because they are easy, but because they're hard. It was a huge challenge. It was met on July the 20th, 1969, when Neil Armstrong stepped down on the moon. That's the way we Christians face the challenges of living according to the Sermon on the Mount, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Controlling anger, not being judgmental, being charitable, and not allowing material possessions to define who we are. Of all the instructions in the Sermon on the Mount, the hardest is, you have heard that it was said, love your friends, hate your enemies. But now I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may become sons of your Father in heaven. It's hard because forgiving goes against basic human survival instincts, the desire to protect ourselves, to get retribution, to pay back, to teach the enemy a lesson. It's very destructive as it causes many to be bookkeepers of injuries, tallying up the reasons to be angry and break off relationships. Martin Luther King had this to say: we must develop and maintain the capacity to forgive. He who is devoid of the power to forgive is devoid of the power to love. There is some good in the worst of us and some evil in the best of us. When we discover this, we are less prone to hate our enemies. Let's face it, it's not easy to follow the Sermon on the Mount day in, day out. Thankfully, God doesn't expect us to do this all on our own. His Spirit is with us every step of the way. When it's hard, all we need to do is pause, pray for help, and we'll accomplish more than we ever thought we could. We get the help because by love, compassion, and forgiveness, we are doing the Lord's life-giving work. I don't know how you're doing, but for me, it's always a work in progress. We are not alone. Thanks be to God.